A big thanks to Åre Skidsport for making this episode possible.
So, because my dad was an old motocross racer. In my mind, I was this hungry kid that just wanted to prove to my dad that I was faster than him anyway. People want to make stuff happen. And that's I think that's why I like this town so much. It's a town where you sort of get to know people through doing what you enjoy doing, like bucket list things to do, because we want to do it for our honeymoon. And we both put snowboarding in Alaska as number one. Hey, hello! Whoa, hey, it's windy, yeah. Hey, how's it going? Good. Hey, how's it going, man? Good to see you. Hey.
Today we're chatting with Joel. What we know about him so far is that he works at Klättermusen, he has a snowboard podcast, and he's been living here for quite a while now. We can't wait to get to know him better together with you guys.
Yeah, so your English is quite American in an accent. Why did you live there or something?
No, but I think, and I honestly don't know. I think it's just because of movies or whatever. But it was always like a fascination for me when I was young. And my sister actually left for the States when I was about, I can't remember, but maybe young, 6 or 7 or something. I actually don't know. But yeah, so she left for the States to do a year over there, and that's when I sort of I don't know, I grew fascinated by it, I guess.
So you have an older sister then?
3. Actually,
but very a big difference then.
Yeah, I'm the kid. They're 12, 14, and 15. Hope I got that right. 12, 14, and 15 years older than me.
Okay,
so yeah, I'm the little kid in the family for sure.
With three sisters, bigger sisters.
Yeah,
how was that?
I mean, it was good. We grew up a little bit separate. So I have one sister on my dad's side and 2 sisters on my mom's side, and so we grew up sort of separate a little bit. But I lived more with my mom's sisters when I was younger, or my sisters on my mom's side. And but I think that sort of definitely shaped me. Growing up with 2 bigger sisters, definitely just being that is not going to fly in this house. That behavior stops right now. I think that was good for me.
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So you are Swede. Because when I met you, I've been thinking the same. I still keep not believing that you are actually Swedish.
Really?
Yeah, you really do not look and sound like a Swedish person. So something went wrong there.
I don't know if that's a compliment or not, but I'll take it.
It's good, yeah.
Yeah, but you could fit right in Canada or the States, like you said. You have that, I don't know, the vibe and everything.
Yeah.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah,
I could see you fit in a mountain town, Travis Rice style, the whole vibe around that,
It's probably the biggest compliment.
Yeah.
But I think I grew up in the countryside sort of thing, and always was had this sort of American fascination in a way, but then obviously just going abroad and living abroad for a few years and stuff also, and which is weird because my accent should probably be more British considering I have a lot of British friends. But it tends to just fall back into American default mode in a way. I don't know.
But you lived in abroad then?
In France for a couple of years.
Yeah, but there they don't speak English that well.
No, and we lived in Morzine, which is we spent some time.
That's half British.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, we spent some time in Chamonix, but then we figured Morzine was a lot more our style of our vibe. So me and Sunny, my wife, we went over there and stayed there for a couple of years.
Oh, how long ago are we talking about?
So, I mean, we left in 2007 and we moved here in 2010. So 3 years.
3 years. Yeah. Okay. How was that?
I mean, I still so there's a long story and the short story.
Let's go for the long one.
We have time.
Long But let's start one second back. Where in Sweden did you grow up?
So it's Alfta, it's called Hälsingland. It's pretty much halfway from here to Stockholm-ish. It's proper countryside.
A little tiny village.
Yeah. I mean when I grew up, it was, it's probably bigger now, but when I grew up, it was about 5,000 or 6,000 people in the town.
That's still pretty solid.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking town and area.
Okay.
But yeah, and I actually, so that's the town. I actually grew up outside of town, just along a gravel road, kind of classic, family houses and stuff like proper. So near the motocross track, which became my youth.
Okay.
So that's sort of that's like fields and lakes and forests. That's my upbringing.
And I guess your sisters weren't into motocross.
Well, they sort of were. They were like, at least my sister on my dad's side was like, she was really actually really like serious about it when she was young. But then, like the classic sort of like, like just a classic view of like my dad was, because my dad was an old motocross racer. He was really like a motocross profile. He was sort of a name in that era. So that when
was a professional. Or?
I mean, if you could call it a professional at that time, there was really no professional riding in that time. But he's brought home the gold for the Swedish team once. So
the gold
it's like championship, like a team race sort of thing. Like
very cool. What time are we talking about then? Is that around?
So this would have been like he was 21 at the time. So this would have been like in the like 60s. Yeah, I should know this year actually.
Yeah, okay. But just to get an idea about the time.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
He was born in 47, so it would have been somewhere around there.
So how old were you when you got on your first bike? 4. Nice. That's really cool.
I do like, and you don't really know if you're like making memories up, or if you actually remember because but I was just always just like on my BMX bike all the time. And then my dad apparently told my mom that there's like because I'm not taking this kid to the hospital like every other day. He's not going to go riding motocross. And then like eventually, I think it was on my 4th birthday, they figured out like I only played with like, bikes or motocross bikes or motorcycles. Like I never even cared about cars or anything like that. So then they were just like, okay, yeah, we just have to go with it and see what happens. And they gave me these like presents in the form of, like boots and a helmet and stuff. The helmet I could obviously probably relate to, but like clothing and stuff. And I didn't really get it. And then they're just like, go look out the window. Went out the window or looked out the window and there was a motocross bike on the lawn. And I can still like, at least I believe that I can remember that look down from that window and look down at that motorbike and just be like,
the best moment ever.
Yeah. So yeah, wow. 4 years old.
Is it possible to like steer it and handle it yourself at that age? Or you need help from your dad all the time? Or
I mean, I think they probably, according to the stories, they thought I would need help, I think. But I think I probably have my dad's like genes in that sense. Yeah. So that was all good.
Yeah.
Wow. But it's all like at that age, it's all automatic. And, like it's all just,
yeah, but still the balance and everything. I guess you.
But obviously, just like growing up on a bicycle.
Yeah.
There is a funny story about apparently that and I don't remember this. My mom's just told me that my mom was away for work when I was like around like 3 or something, and I was on this like BMX bike that had these I don't know what you call it in Swedish actually, but like the supportive wheels on the back that makes you like not fall over. Mm-hmm. And I told my dad to excuse the language, like take these damn trailers or trainers off because I'm not going to ride my bike anymore until you like take them off. Apparently, so they say. And my dad took him off, and yeah, there we go.
And from there on, you was just.
So I should actually be a much better bike and motorbike rider than I am today, considering.
And how many times did you end up in the hospital in the end?
Enough.
Okay, so that did happen.
As a kid, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like there's so much volume in a motorbike that like and like it's a lot of speed, it's a lot of weight, it's a lot of power. So if you try to go fast or if you try to jump stuff, like it'll happen eventually. It's just gonna happen.
But nothing like super tragic where you were, I don't know, immobilized for a year or something like that, or
no, not really. I would say I've been extremely lucky with a lot of crashes that should have been worse. But what I have done is I've hit my head quite a bit too many times, which is not optimal. But other than that, I've been very, very lucky.
Okay.
I had not had that many. Like I've had a couple of surgeries and stuff, but like
So everything is still working.
Yeah. Well,
Nice.
apart from so it's constant slow motion.
That's okay. We can handle that.
But do you actually feel yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it's sort of like someone. I mean, I share this with a lot of people in this town. Like doesn't matter really where it comes from. Like a lot of people have had bad concussions from like skiing or biking or whatever it might be. But like it's sort of like having a heavy blanket over your head at all times, kind of. And sometimes it's heavier, sometimes it's hardly even there. And it's like slows things down a bit. You know, yeah. I don't know how to describe it, but it's.
And when did you put your bike on the hook? Let's say when did you stop
the motorbike?
The motorbike.
So I stopped racing motocross when I was quite a long time ago. I stopped racing that when I was like about 20, like 2000 and would have been a bit earlier, but 2002 was the last year I
competing
raced.
at that point.
Yeah.
So how does that look like? Because I have no idea how that you travel around the world, or not the world.
No,
maybe
but Sweden. Yeah. And it actually has the same sort of like setup in series way that sort of like football would have. Like you have your sort of like amateur races, and then you have your well, it's called Allsvenskan in Swedish. I actually don't know what the name would be in like, but then you have like the elite series above that, and then obviously there are like the top leagues. And when I stopped racing, I was racing for my local team in Allsvenskan, which is that sort of first proper level of league, if you want to call it that.
Yeah. And there was not like a profession at that point, I guess. It's just a hobby.
No,
still.
yeah, for sure.
But you say team, isn't this like a solo sport?
Yeah, but that's that when you go into Allsvenskan, well, for lack of actually knowing if there's a better word, you compete as a team and you gather points over the season.
Okay.
For the team. So
a bit like Formula One, that you have two players that kind of run together.
Yeah. Only Formula One is obviously at a very different level. But
yes,
yeah. But sort of the same mindset or way of doing it.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then it's like this dirt tracks, jumps high or fast. Or what's the goal, the end goal? Just do many,
so then you have, I mean, the format is you have a set of time, which can be like, say, 25 minutes, like lap time, or I mean, as in total time, 30 minutes or something, depending on the race.
Yeah.
And then you have, whenever the time runs out, whoever's leading has 2 more laps.
Okay.
And then when they finish that's when the race is over, sort of thing.
And then you count the amount.
Whoever's leading has 2 more laps. I don't. So whoever's leading has 2 more laps.
Yeah, but so the format is that obviously like you have the same amount of time for everybody, but then you don't really know when the leader's gonna cross that, like when the time's gonna be out, sort of thing.
Okay.
So whenever the time runs out, next time he laps around like the finish line, sort of thing, that's when you have 2 more laps.
Okay.
And then after that
makes sense.
Goal.
Yeah.
And then it's the total laps that count.
No, it's just the fastest.
The fastest, the one who goes over the.
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't get extra points for tricks or something.
No, not in motocross. Yeah.
Okay.
Fastest one wins.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then it's a similar system as Formula One, where the one gets 12, 10, 8, whatever, something like that points. In the further you're down, the less points you get.
Yeah. Sort of thing. And but I think that's like, the racing, like I always wanted to just go, like I wanted to be a free rider. Like I wanted to go jumping and stuff. And obviously, my dad, he was very like, he was sort of old school in that sense. Like he was very meticulous about the racing part of it. And he was really good at that. And obviously like this whole kind of free ride movement was a new thing. And that was not something that was like popular at that time with my dad in that sense. But because he was like, yeah, you're just playing with a very expensive machine, you know, like rather than actually winning in that sense, or competing to win in that sense.
So what was the free ride movement then? Because again, for me, it's kind of like a world that I know nothing about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's all like there are these. I mean, there's tons of anyone who's swung a leg over a motorbike will tell you that like Crusty Demons of Dirt and those like old school movies and stuff was hugely influential, and it was like that sort of like rock and roll kind of like motocross, like doing tricks and jumping ramps and, you know, jumping like sand dunes rather than being the fastest guy on track.
But because free ride for me, if I relate to snowboarding, it's like outside of the track, it's going everywhere.
Yeah.
Is that the
but
same
that's
idea?
Sort of thing? Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
But is it legal to go anywhere with your motorbike then?
No. Definitely not. So you have to obviously, but like obviously this is also something that didn't really resonate well with my dad, because he's always, and he's been very, I mean, I'm the same. I'm the same with like, if I would have an area that is like, this is free roam, then I'd be happy. But if this is like an off limit area, I would have like a lot of like that sort of stings in me a little bit, because my dad is just like being very like meticulous about those things. Mm-hmm. So that's like what do
you mean? You wouldn't go there, or you would?
Yeah,
go?
No, I wouldn't. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I would try not to, I guess.
I assume your parents had a very big role on this, because getting you everywhere and getting all the bikes, and it's a heavy support.
Yeah, it's a family, like it's a family affair for sure.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like obviously, like, and it costs a lot of money. It's a lot of travel, and like when you think about vacation in terms of the parents, there is none. There is motocross tracks all summer long, and that is all it is.
And your mom, did she agree? Like, how did she get involved in this in the end? Was she okay with
I
it?
mean, so they'd been together for quite a while before I was welcomed into the world, so to speak. And so they'd been around, like they'd been around a lot of motocross tracks and stuff. So it's I think it was just sort of like what they were used to as well. But my mom definitely wanted to travel a bit more than my dad. He never really cared for it in that sense, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
But.
And your dad was still actively riding as well? At that point?
Not when I started. He wasn't. Actually, he basically quit like around the 70s.
Okay.
But when I was a bit older, he got a bike, and we rode together for a couple of years, which was a lot of fun.
Nice. Free riding?
No. No, but what was so crazy about that as well is like, so my dad was obviously like, obviously he was a very good technical rider. But at the point in life where he got that bike, it was really just to be out there and have fun at the same time as me. So what happened was like, in my mind, I was this like, you know, hungry kid that just wanted to prove to my dad that I was faster than him anyway. But he was so skilled at like, you know, reading the track, reading the patterns of everyone around him, like just, you know, technically wise, and he was on a bigger bike, of course, but like, for the life of me, like I could not pass him. And it pissed me off so much that eventually I was just like, okay, my only weapon here is jumping. So I was like, I had to like, because he couldn't clear like all the jumps and stuff. So eventually I was just like, I'm just going to go for it. And I jumped over him on a tabletop sort of thing. And that was my only way of getting past him. So obviously I was maybe like at that age, like more of an intense rider, but he was so skilled that he just blocked my every move. Like I had no chance of getting past him. That was like an experience I'll never forget.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a big difference in age as well, I guess. Between you
for sure.
You two.
And that's why I was always a little bit like, I'm going to show you, Dad. Like, come on, let's go. But I had one resort, and that was like airtime.
Nice.
But yeah,
that was cool. Yeah, it must have been fun and intense to grow up like that with the motocross world. Yeah. Do you still have friends from that time period?
Yeah. I mean, definitely that. I mean, in a way, that was sort of definitely like you were a lot younger, and I sort of like transferred into snowboarding and all that, like and biking. So that's definitely taken over a lot of that. So I don't have that many friendships from growing up in that, but obviously those acquaintances and friends from back in the day, that will always be, you know, like some people that whenever you see them back home or whatever, like you always have that connection in a way. Because growing up in motocross, it's intense. I think like every sort of sport that demands, I mean, that can be soccer or whatever, but like any sort of sport that demands that little extra of you in a social setting, I think that's a good upbringing in a way. Like you learn so much. But with motocross, it's like you have to be like on the whole time, otherwise you are like on the ground, and it's not gonna be a good one. Like it's gonna suck. So you have to be on it. Like snowboarding is so much more forgiving. Like, you can get hurt snowboarding, don't get me wrong, but obviously, as you know, but like you can go just have a day of surfing on the snowboard. But whereas if you are not focused on the motocross bike, you will be on the ground.
Yeah, you can choose when you're snowboarding. You can just, do it. We call it a Sunday ride. Chill, and I guess you can't really do that on.
Well, if you're competing, I guess. If you're not competing on a motorbike, it's kind of similar. You can still...
You can, but it's also this case of like, if you say you have a section of track that is really like messy or like a lot of tracks and stuff, if you go into that sort of half energy, it's going to eat you alive. Like you have to power through it. Otherwise the bike will just be everywhere. So that's sort of the, I actually, my sister, one of my sister's son, he just actually had an accident, like and fractured 3 vertebrae because he relaxed in like a sand dune sort of straight line. And he's a good rider, but the funny thing is that he crashed because he slowed down, because he was like planning to stop, and so he slowed down, and then the bike just like high-sided and went. Because if he would have been on it and just like having the like riding it as you're normally riding it, then he would have been fine.
I don't know if you're interested in having kids, but would you see your own kid doing this? Like, or would you? I
think I would. Like, so the kids discussion is obviously like a big subject. We've actually decided not to have kids.
Okay.
But if I did have kids, and if we, I'd facilitate it probably, like, and then they could choose for themselves if that's something that they wanted to do. But like, for sure, like biking and stuff that you can still do, like traveling the world with or whatever, like where you can do socially, and that comes with a lot of risk. But I think motocross biking or motocrossing is something that you sort of, I don't know, I would probably saying that I might regret, like maybe I would regret that in one way someday, but I think that I would have facilitated it and see where it went.
Are you
knowing the risks?
Are you comfortable speaking about the decision why you don't want to have kids, or is it too private?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Because I find it a very interesting subject these days, because it's changing more than it used to be. Like it's more a conscious decision, I think, than back in the day. Do you want to have kids or not?
Yeah.
For me, it's been always very easy. Like I was 16, I was like, I want to have kids young. That's like I didn't even think about it twice. But what was the reason you guys don't want to?
I mean, it's just been a journey, I think. Like me and Sani, we got together in like 2006, 2007. And at that point, like, and for years, we figured we wanted kids. So we were just like, okay, when we have kids, how do we do it? Like, okay, we'll take all our maternity leave, like dad leave, whatever, and then just like go to Canada and just like rent a house and just like hang out there for a year or whatever. So we had these like thoughts, and then, but then like the more sort of the years kind of went by, and the more things that we did, that we wanted to do and everything, that we never really felt like it never sort of came to us, like that, like energy and that, like the feeling that we wanted to have kids never really kind of came to us. And that's when we started talking about it. So we had that discussion for quite a while, or quite a few years, where we were like, okay, so we're deciding, okay, not now, but still maybe in the future, sort of thing. But then it just kind of grew into, we had a lot of discussions about it, and it sort of just grew into just like that we realized that it might not be for us in a way. And I realized that's like sort of, it's a sensitive thing to talk about in a way that you do meet a lot of reactions when you do talk about it. So it's a weird.
And there wasn't one party, I mean, you or your wife, that had like a bigger want to have kids.
And I think that was the key to it, because both of us felt the same way. And I think that was sort of, because generally I think that if one of us would have been like, I want kids, I definitely think the other one would have followed.
Okay.
Like I have no doubt. But since we both felt that way, we started sort of turning it around and just went, okay, so if we don't feel that way, is it fair of us to bring a kid into the world with that sort of in the back of our head? Okay, so we'll maybe not. So we'll just wait see how this feels, and keep talking about it, keep discussing it. And then eventually we did sort of come to that decision that actually, we made the decision not to.
I think it's a beautiful way to look at it. Like, what do you actually want instead of that following the need of society and like we all need to make babies. I think it's really important, and they're not the best for the environment anyway. So you're doing a great job.
They're and I mean, to be fair, they're like, I mean, kids can be great, but is also that, like, I don't know. It's just that sort of, would we want to bring a kid into the world when we're having these thoughts, like when we're having these feelings? So maybe that's more fair to the kid.
And do you know, like, is there also another reason behind it? Like the way that you see your future shaped in a way that is easier without a kid, that you like, I don't, do you know what I mean? Like, is there a positive reason outcome for you for not having kids?
I mean, well, I think that's, so this is obviously a very sensitive subject in terms of that it's probably very selfish. But obviously we're going to be able to live a different life without kids.
Yep.
But if we wanted to have kids, that would have obviously been, I mean, look at you guys, how you live with your kids. Like it's possible to still do the things that you want to do with kids. It's just a matter of like arranging it differently, I guess. So yes and no. Like I think we would have, if we wanted if we wanted to go that route, we would have managed it. But now we're feeling that we wanted to go the other route. And then that's
I don't think selfish is a good word for that. I don't think there's anything selfish about it. You just do what feels best for you. I think what is selfish, maybe, I don't know, still I don't like the word, but is to have kids when you don't want to have them. Because then, like what you say, you think about what's better for the kid as well. So I think it's not really a selfish thing. You're just listening to your needs and wants. Unless you have a different
No.
Yeah.
It's in a way a kind of a brave decision as well. You can look at that way as well, because it's like you say, the society around you probably thinks like, well, you're a young couple, why are you not creating kids?
It sparks a lot of discussion.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Did you lose friends over this, or did you have like
no, not really. No. But I guess not that we ever lost friends, but a lot of our friends obviously moved on to having kids, and that's obviously by just natural reasons. You don't hang out as much anymore, but that doesn't mean that they're not like just as close friends to us whenever that day comes, or whenever that, like, even if it's just a quick cup of coffee rather than hanging out all night, that's like still, that relationship is still there.
Yeah.
No, we can hang out now because our kids are older, so we're out of that situation. But I had kids at quite a young age. I was 24 with the first one and 28 with the second. These days, that's young. But so in that sense, all my friends from back in school and stuff had kids a lot later. So I was a bit the only parent out there for a while. But yeah, I don't know. Life goes on and you figure it out, and it is what it is. And
for me, it's the opposite. I was quite old. I had kids, so all my friends already had kids. And then I felt kind of similar to you, because I wasn't sure about kids as well. And they created their lives with their kids. Yeah. And you kind of are not left out, but it is just a natural process. And it's not bad either, because they have their other life with kids and they have friends with kids. So we know this as well. Like, we're now hanging out with somebody who has kids. It's nice for the kids because they play together and they have a good time.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
So, but it doesn't mean you cannot have friends without kids, I guess, because you can do different things.
Of course. And obviously it's more intense in like when the kids are small, but then as soon as, like you said, like the kids are growing up, and then you can start hanging out in a different way.
Yeah.
So
right. Where are you now in your phase in life? You are, what age are you, more or less?
Old.
You don't have to say if you don't want. I know it's
no, it's definitely not a touchy subject. It's just like hard to relate to sometimes, where the time does disappear.
Okay, but we need a number now. Now I'm curious.
It's 39.
39.
I'm turning 40 next year.
Oh yeah.
I'm not that, like, it's I'm joking. I'm not that old in that sense, but obviously it's like when your mind is still 16, you're like, how did this happen?
It is weird, how time flies. I'm the same, I guess. I'm older than you, but just suddenly you're there. And I used to be young, 16, 17, 47. So
I'll not ask you the ladies.
Yeah,
age.
ladies.
Oh, 34.
Yeah.
Am I? Yes. I noticed that when you're in your 30s, you start to forget what age you are.
Yeah.
And I met him when he was 33, 34, and he never knew what age he was. And I was like, dude, how can you not know your own age? But maybe it's like it's
a mental thing. I think you
just
on purpose. You don't want to think about it too much anymore, because you still want to do these things that we do, I guess.
Yeah.
Because you're still quite active on the mountain, I guess.
I would say, yeah. I mean, I try to be.
Yeah.
So how did you get into snowboarding? Actually, what was that?
It's the classic of like you have that like motocross background that we talked about, and then you realize that, okay, so like what kind of life do I sort of want to live? Like, do I want to discover the world, or do I want to just stay in the gravel pit like all summer long? And that would have obviously meant, you know, taking a job that earned a lot of money back home, but wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do, you know, like, and then that would have just been that. Whereas I felt like I wanted to discover the world, and then snowboarding and biking's always been there because it's 2 wheels and a handlebar, right? but so biking and that's always been there. But then, and I never really liked winter because that meant like end of you know, motocross season in a sense. Like we ride motocross in the winter as well, which we always did, but it's not the same. So snowboarding sort of came around because I saw it, you know, in magazines and like skateboard magazines in school, like at the library in school. And you saw it in magazines, you're like, this looks rad. Because it was always like any kid will have a skateboard sort of thing. And I was never a talented skateboarder, but I had a skateboard, you know. And then you look at that and you're like, man, this looks like it's easier because it looks like you're strapped in. Like this looks like fun. And then you started seeing the same as in the terms of what I mentioned with like the free riding aspect of motocross. You started seeing the same sort of thing, but as in snowboarding. Like you saw that sort of punk rock mentality in snowboarding, and I'm like, this is like, what is this? So I decided like, okay, I'm done skiing. I'm going to be a snowboarder.
What age was this?
I think the first time I tried snowboarding it was fairly late in a sense, but I think I was probably around like 15, and I couldn't do it in the first time I tried it. It was with a friend that I went to school with, and he took me along, and I borrowed his board, and I just like couldn't. I don't know. I was probably 13 or 14 or something like that. I couldn't figure it out, and I was really disappointed because like this was my new thing, and I couldn't figure it out. But then. And at this time, we sort of went with that classic, you know, like holiday trip to the mountains sort of thing.
Here in Sweden.
Yeah, because my grandma used to have a place in Funäsdalen, which is obviously you probably know mountain area around here. So we always went to that for like that one time a year sort of thing. And I broke my skis. Not by intent, but like jumping so that they just delamped. It was like the skis are all over the place. And then I just walked down to the rental shop and said, hi, like I want to rent a snowboard because I broke my skis and I'm not going to go skiing anymore. And they were like, okay, so can we call your mom maybe? You know? But yeah, so it ended up, they called my mom, who was out like cross country skiing at the time, and we were going to meet later, obviously, that kind of thing. So they called my mom and they were like, yeah, like we'll lend him a snowboard and then he can, you know, fiddle around in the kids' slope and then pay when you get back sort of thing. And they lent me a snowboard for the day. And I went on my own. My friends kept skiing, and I went like tried to figure it out. And eventually
you were the only one on a snowboard at that point. You were by yourself.
Yeah, I was alone. Yeah. Okay. So, and I mean, teaching myself, not necessarily, but I eventually made it down. Like I figured it out how to like make it down the kids' slope.
Did you use YouTube yet at that time, or was that not an existing?
It was definitely not existent at that time. We did just talk about my age, right? Yeah. No, so I would have been like, I think I would have been like, I'm not sure, but I would have been like 14, 15 probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's 25 years ago, more or less.
Yeah,
we're not talking about YouTube. No. That might be there, but you didn't have a phone that you
actually might have been a bit younger even, because I think I was in. It doesn't matter.
No,
yeah.
But you managed to get down. Without hurting yourself too much, I guess.
Yeah. So, and then I just kind of made the decision. Same sort of thing as with the motocross riding. It's like, well, if you don't try, you won't know. Like. There's so many scenarios with like bigger jumps or whatever it might be at a track where you're looking at it and you're like I think I can do it, but like if you don't try, you won't know. So that was sort of the thing. Like I looked at the biggest chairlift, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go. But it took a lot of time to get down, but then eventually like I did. So that was like how I started snowboarding and never looked back.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of perseverance in there, and just
but it's like I said, I saw this in magazine. This was going to be my thing, and apparently it was.
Yeah, but without a group of friends around pushing you or anything, it's just you mentally, like in your own thoughts. Like, I'm gonna do this. It's kind of different.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I always admire people who can do that. Like, I need guidance and I need to know how it works. I would never just say, get on a snowboard and teach myself. No, I find a boyfriend who can teach me.
And in many ways, that's probably more sensible.
But you managed, so that's cool. I like it.
And then I, after that, like, I classic, asked for a snowboard for Christmas and got it the next Christmas. And the rest is history, I guess.
And then you did a season at some point, or you went away to like literally live, like you talked about in Morzine.
Yeah. So I mean, doing a season in a sense, but we left and figured that we left in the summer actually, and then we were like, we'll see what happens. We'll see when we go back. We just like filled up the car with all the stuff, and then we're like, let's go down to France, and then we'll see where we end up and see what happens. We had some friends in around the Morzine area that were good friends that so we were actually planning to go to Morzine first, but then we did end up going to Chamonix just because it was super easy for us to get a job there. But then Sani had quite a bad accident with her back and stuff, so that was sort of it. And we should have, in hindsight, we should have like gone back to Sweden after that accident and like sorted everything out, but we chose to stay in France, and that went, maybe that wasn't the best decision from our end, considering like now we're like, whenever you're in Chamonix, you have that sort of vibe that like this is where it all sort of it wasn't a great time. But then we moved over to Morzine. We spent some time in Saas-Fee in Switzerland before in between there, and then we moved over to Morzine. But that sort of just like became home like quite fast. And it still sort of feels like second home.
And she already liked snowboarding before she met you, or?
Yeah, which is funny. Like when we met, I was really kind of offstandish in a way. It's like I'm not gonna have a girlfriend. I'm going to snowboarding. Like no one's gonna tell me if I'm snowboarding or not tomorrow, like or today or the next day. Like, but then I realized like the more I got to know, because we got to know each other in the summer. Winter comes around and I realized that like she was snowboarding more than me. I was like, what? and yeah, so that's sort of obviously like, and then, but I'll truthfully, I was being a young dude and not just being sensible. So I was like putting this off and being like, no, we're not going to be in a relationship sort of thing. But undeniably there was something there. Like I'll never forget that first like night that I met her. Like when she walked in the room, I was like, that you can feel it straight away. But what needed to happen for me to realize that I actually had to get my stuff together is that she moved here. Because for the World Champs in 2007, she got a job here just for like during the World Champs and the rest of the season sort of thing. And that's when I realized she can meet some cool snowboarder dude in Åre. Like I have to hustle. so I went to see her, and then that was since that.
But then you were living here already, or not?
No, we were in Gävle at that point. Sorry, we're skipping steps.
But no, but I'm just trying to figure out how that worked. So she decided to move up to Åre, and you were in Gävle together as a couple, kind of then?
Well, I mean, on and off, not being a couple actually, but always hanging out. And then when she moved here, I realized that.
So you followed her here?
Not to move, but to visit. And then when her season here was over, that's when we left for France.
So then you decided, let's stay together and have a relationship.
Yeah.
And what did you love about Morzine?
It's sort of like Åre in a way. Like it's a lot more, if you compare it to Chamonix, it's a lot more casual in a way. Like it's a lot more relaxed. It's not as like high intensity all the time. It has big mountains, but it definitely, like that Voriaz area has a lot of big mountains, but you can just have that sort of playful snowboard vibe, and the area is a lot more like snowboard friendly in the sense of terrain, and like there's a lot of snowboarders there, and it's like a British snowboard mecca basically. It's like any British person that wants to go snowboarding goes to Morzine
Yeah, definitely.
That is weird because it's in France, and when you're there, I did a season there. I worked for Mint Snowboarding.
Oh yeah, we talked about this before. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I forgot about that. Sorry.
But then you're
for listeners, you can maybe
Mint Snowboarding is a snowboard school in Avrian. So I worked for them for one season.
Yeah.
But when you arrive there, you're literally arriving in France. You're like, yeah, well, let's speak French, but everybody speaks English. It's such a weird little vibe there.
Yeah. No, but Morzine is great. Like I love it.
Morzine is great, yeah.
And the biking in the summer is insane.
Yeah, we haven't. I've missed that part. I wasn't biking at that point.
No,
I'd love to go back
I mean,
at some
for
point.
you guys who does a lot of traveling, like you should definitely check that out. It's, the area is amazing.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah.
Biking.
And is there a reason that wasn't the end point or like your home base now?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, again, I can't say it enough. Like, we still love Morzine. I mean, Sunny, the last time we went down to Morzine to hang out with some friends and just like, catch up a little bit. She hadn't been there for quite a while. I'd been there like in between, but she hadn't been there for quite a while, and she actually cried when we drove into town. It's like, that's sort of the vibe.
Yeah.
But the reason is like we loved it there. Like she worked in a bar, had a great time working there. It's a great place. You might know it. It's the Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
It was called the Tibetan later on, but and I worked in the slopestyle snowboard shop.
Yeah.
And we loved it. Like, we met some of the coolest friends that we still are in touch with today from those years. But Sani wanted to go back to studies. And I also sort of felt like I loved working in the shop, but I also wanted to do something. Like when you work in a small shop like that, it is always going to be the owner, and then it's going to be, the two of us sort of thing. And then, so that was never really gonna develop. I was actually, they opened a different shop when I was leaving, and they actually asked me to stay on to run that, but we'd sort of already made the decision to go back to Sweden. And when you live in an alpine town like that, I guess that's sort of the same if you live here as a seasonaire and go on and off with jobs, is you sort of not that you get stuck, but you sort of get a little stuck because you save the money that you earn. If you're not earning very much, you save all the money that you earn to be able to like function during interseason and like when you don't have much job or much work. That obviously means that you can't actually go traveling in your off time sort of thing, or whatever you want to do. So that's sort of also what we missed to have a bit more like stability. So we went back to Sweden, and then when we were starting to talk about that, Sunny suggested Åre, and I was actually quite against it. I was like, nah, not really sure. It's because I had like week 9 in my mind sort of thing, when it's like a lot of people everywhere, like really crowded. I hadn't gotten into splitboarding quite yet. Like I knew about it, but hadn't gotten into it yet. So I was like very kind of cautious about the decision to move to Åre, but I was like, well, if you say so, like let's try it, see what happens. And we moved here in the rainiest May of the century, probably in 2010, and still here we are.
You're still here, yeah. So that's.
How do you deal with week 9 now?
No, I go splitboarding.
Nice, there you go. That's a perfect solution.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I think it's great. Like, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people everywhere. Food stores, town, food shopping, everything has to you have to sort of plan things a little differently if you want it to be smooth. And same, like obviously the mountain's going to have a lot of people, especially if areas are closing down because of wind or whatever it might be. But it's also, the thing that makes the town tick is these times of these periods of time when there is a lot of people here. If that didn't happen, then we wouldn't have the town that we have. So,
very true. It's part of
yeah. So for the listeners, the week 9, because Swedish people is something we had to learn as well. They speak in weeks. Yeah. We would speak more in months, like February, whatever. But here it's all in weeks.
Or dates, like normal people.
Yeah, normal people.
Yeah, like normal people. Yeah. Who speaks in weeks?
Yeah.
The only time you do that is vacation time.
Yeah, exactly.
Week 9 is the week that Stockholm area has a holiday, right? So everybody's off, and then a lot of them move over to Åre for their ski holiday, I guess. Yeah,
because Åre is quite popular in Stockholm, but for a number of reasons, which is that's great, and that's I welcome it. But it's like if you want to sort of have like your own sort of smoothness of life that you're sort of used to during the other times of year. You have to plan for it.
It does make me really happy though when I drive through town and it's like crazy busy. It does bring that city vibe for like a week or a few weeks a year. And I don't go on the slopes, those, or I try not to. And like you say, go splitboarding or do another activity.
If you go to Tega and do it, it's
still okay
even
as well.
still okay
for sure.
in general. So it's just the Åre area.
In general, for sure. And I think that it's just a matter of like how you view it, because you can choose to be pissed off about the queues and stuff. And I'll say I've been guilty of that, but like it's not if we wouldn't have these times of year, Christmas and New Year's coming up, like it's going to be the same. Then we can also just pack up and leave, because there wouldn't be anything here.
You can always go do something else.
So how did your job career and then work out in Åre? What did you start with?
Oh, this is a good one. Like you'll like my first job here.
Okay.
So I did say it was a rainy May, right? It was crazy. It went floods everywhere. Like there was mudslides everywhere, rock slides everywhere.
Cleaning the roads.
Under the roads.
Under the roads. Ooh, okay.
So I worked with Bratlands Åkeri, who's a local entrepreneur who was contracted by like cleaning like the tunnels and stuff under the roads that literally just like got like jammed with rocks and trees and mud. So we were quite a big team of us that like just like crawling into tunnels and digging out mud and rock.
Wow.
So that was my first job in pouring rain all day. It was great.
Oh, impressive.
But the rent has to be paid, It's like there was no other choice. But then actually, so I come from retail, like already at that point, I'd done quite a few years in shops and that kind of thing. So then I got word from people in the business and close friends that Rip Curl was opening a shop in Åre.
Okay.
Which seemed really unlikely, because Rip Curl is obviously a snowboarding brand, but at that time Rip Curl was quite strong in the sense of like snowboarding. They had gained quite a bit of following in that sense. So they were opening up a store in Åre. That is the European Rip Curl, that is. So they put my name forwards, and I generally I applied for a job in the shop, and then some people in the business basically called me up and said, "So you got an interview for the shop manager job?" I was like, "Excuse me?" I was like, "Okay." But obviously I'd had quite a few years in shops by then. So I was like, yeah, I'll go for an interview and see what's up. And I knew the Rip Curl guys a little bit from before, from the snowboarding scene in Sweden in a sense. So I went for that interview. I got the job, and then we just started hammering away at the shop and making it, starting it up.
Really?
Yeah.
This is then in 2011, 12?
10. Yeah, fall of 2010.
So, but now the shop doesn't exist anymore. How long did that?
No, I would say it was very bad timing in a lot of ways. So snowboarding was sort of already feeling a little bit of a decline by then, but it was still sort of happening. And free skiing was quite big as well, of course. So Rip Curl did have a few skiers on the team and stuff. But then what happened was obviously Rent, center of town in Åre. Do you know where the shop was?
No.
It was in above. So where Ski Star at the square is. Above that, there's the Mr. French currently have that the serving space. That's the space where the shop was.
Oh, okay.
So you entered from that terrace.
Oh. So straight in the middle of everything.
Yeah. So and obviously high rent, a fairly unknown brand in Åre. Just sort of happening in snowboarding. Skiing's very popular in Åre. Snowboarding was sort of on a down in Åre. There was a lot of things that sort of didn't really fall into place. But so we opened the shop, and the months where there was a lot of people in town worked actually surprisingly well. Whereas when there's no people in town, we didn't really have the foundation to rely on. But we had the shop for about 2 years, and then we did come to a mutual decision that I don't think that this is gonna be this is probably not gonna.
Is the rent price for a shop in Åre the same all year round, or does it change according to the month?
Well, I guess that depends who you rent from, but not normally, no.
Yeah, that's harsh. Summer and everything, and
May.
yeah.
And so, and actually, Ripka at that time closed about 50 stores all over Europe.
Oh, wow.
Because snowboarding was surfing was on a bit of a decline as well. Because, like people stopped using board shorts as their normal shorts, and that sort of just like the whole surf industry just went.
What do you mean by they stopped using board shorts?
No, I mean, like people used to hang out in board shorts like as their normal shorts, like everywhere, so more or less.
Yeah.
And then they just stopped doing that and wearing actually normal clothing.
Okay.
Bad for business.
Yeah, bad for business. But yeah, so they closed a lot of stores in all of Europe. Then Hollywood stepped in. I'm not sure. Are you familiar with them? Like it used to be like a skate snowboard shop.
No.
It used to be a Swedish like core skateboard snowboard chain.
Okay.
Yeah, Hollywood.se. They stepped in and took over the contract and hired me as store manager for their shop because they were like, okay, we have a bigger offering. We have like, we are more like
all year round.
Sort of all year round. Yeah. So they were like, we can manage this. But then we also, same thing, like we started looking at the numbers and I was like, you do realize that in May or October or November, like this is going to be tough. So eventually, same thing with that. Like we came to the conclusion that this is going to, like, if we don't do something about this now, this is like actually going to hurt the company quite. Like this is going to be very costly for the company. So we decided to kill it and close the shop, which was it was a shame because we did a lot of fun things during those years.
Like, do you mean?
No, but we had a lot of like. Also at that time there was a lot of people that are still active now in the local music scene and stuff like that. Used to have a lot of parties. Don't know if you've ever heard about Club Crisp that used to be at the top floor of Vashens.
No.
That was a good one. We used to have like some like sort of pre-parties at the shop where we would like do it as a closed party, and we'd like serve beers and watch like do like screenings of snowboard movies. We'd have like snowboard like celebrities like riders come in and like we'd show like parts of movies or whatever, and then we'd bring everyone down to Vashens for that, like for those club nights and stuff. That was
nice.
That was good times.
Should restart that.
Yeah. No, that was we did a lot of cool things like that. There were a lot of like passionate people doing like a lot of just making stuff happen, and we were happy to facilitate that with the shop and just like kind of do it from our end. So there was a lot of fun things, but yeah, eventually that sort of we did close that, and that's sort of where I think most people in this town probably knows me from is I ended up going to work with Daniel at Åre Skidsport.
Ah, really? So you worked at Skidsport then afterwards?
Yeah. For how many years?
I think about 4 years before jumping back into the concussion where I slammed my head a bit too hard, and that was sort of it for a lot of things. But I did I worked as a bike guide and mechanic during the summer, and then like handled the snowboarding and worked with the boot fitting and stuff like that during winter.
We had Daniel on the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very interesting to hear his story.
Yeah.
But so the concussion, interesting part. I had a bad one myself, so I can relate in some way. But what exactly happened then? What shifted that was different than the previous accidents that you had?
I think probably that I realized that it was more serious than when it never really went away. Like it just like as soon as I did anything, it just came back. Like all the previous crashes and like even though it's been like broken helmets and stuff in the past, it's always sort of faded away and never really thought about it more. And obviously you know like back in the day, if I dare say that word, like it wasn't really a thing. You know, like it wasn't a thing. Like concussion, you hit your head and then you get back up and you're fine. Whereas like eventually a lot of research started showing that it's like, okay, this is actually quite bad. Like if you had too many head traumas.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's when I realized it definitely like it just did not go away.
And you lost focus, or you got dizzy, or was it like a specific thing? I mean,
all of it probably. Like I couldn't do anything. Like I sat on for the whole summer. I think I sat in a chair down by the lake and just drinking coffee and with a cap down over my eyes and sunglasses and like chilling out with my dog by my side. She had a really boring summer.
But then eventually, now you're functioning again?
I would say semi, yeah.
No,
I'm
so
functioning for sure.
how did that get better then? Just over time?
Yeah, and by learning how to
it.
manage it and not to sort of overdo things. And like, I went through a period of time where I really just had to like remove anything from my life that wasn't necessary.
Okay.
Like to be able to work, I had to really just like, that's all I do. And then I take it easy. And to be able to go snowboarding, to go biking, like that had to be sort of like the extra curriculum time in a way. And then that's why sort of like a lot of projects that I had running on the sides and things that I enjoy being involved in, like I had to like stop all of these things.
And do you notice something with like screen time, for example? Like staring?
Yeah, especially if you call it like if you want to look at like how you're scrolling on your phone, like just that movement of like your eyes flickering, is still not healthy at all. Like I really have to mind myself doing these things. But yeah, so and just over stress management more or less. Like, and as soon as I feel like I get like overwhelmed with stress, if I have too much on my plate, sort of thing, I really have to just like remember that I will get through it. It'll be fine. Like, don't work myself up. Like, it'll be all right. But like, there's a lot of these parameters, if you call that. But that sort of
I get the same in migraines then, though. I just get literally blinded.
Yeah.
And I had it yesterday as well. And then I started. It's coming, and it's often also stress and maybe not enough sleep. And then at some point during the day, I said to Tim, like, I have to teach in the afternoon, but I'm just going to close my eyes for half an hour.
Yeah.
And that helped so much, just like shutting everything off for a little bit. And then it was still hurting, but it was better. It's just an over amount of influx. Is that a good word for it? Like, there's
for sure.
too much happening.
Like
but also,
too much stimulation in a way. Like,
but also allowing that to happen. I was like, okay, calm down. Everything you think is important is not important right now.
Yeah.
And you can manage, and it is okay. And just let it go. And I try to do that more to balance it a bit.
Yeah.
It's not always easy.
No, but for sure. But that's like the key. I think that's like the balance is the key for sure.
And how do you do that now? You have a new job, right? You're working now at another company.
Yeah. So I went through, like, I had a period of time when I went through quite a few jobs in town, just like sort of finding where I fit in after, because I felt like I really was at home at Skidsport, and that was the reason why me and Daniel decided that it's better if I leave. It's like I just wasn't able to handle that like level of intensity, with a lot of people in the shop, and you're doing always you might be helping like 4 or 5 people at a time. Like that was just not going to be a good thing. Like I needed to focus on one thing. But so I went through like a few different jobs, but then I by sort of, I don't know, like by luck or chance, I stumbled upon an opportunity with Klättermusen.
It's kind of a new company in a way, or
from the 70s.
From the 70s? Oh, sorry. Then this is my mistake.
No worries.
It feels like a very young company.
I mean, we joke about saying that it's probably the world, like, or the oldest startup in the world, because we've sort of gone through a bit of different iterations, and what people see now is definitely a development of the old school Klättermusen, even though the heritage and the values are the same. And I think a lot of people have discovered us recently. So like that's how we joke about that we're like the oldest startup in the world. Yes. But yeah, like I actually was asked by the design manager and the production manager to come for an interview when I met them in town.
Because their headquarters is Åre, right?
Yeah. So we have an office in Stockholm and in Åre, and then we have a couple of satellites around Europe and as well. That that are also like full-time Klättermusen employees, as well as actually China by now. But the main offices is in Åre and Stockholm. So there was a job in Åre that they asked me you need to come into to interview for this, and I was like, okay, well, part of this job really suits me, but part of this job might not be like my strong suit, and I'm not sure how to work around this, but like I'll come in for an interview, and me and then Gustav, who's the CFO, we like really hit it off during that interview, but I was like brutally honest and said like, hey, so this part of the job is really my thing, like I this is my jam.
What kind of job are you talking about?
So at that point, we were talking about customer service, coming in to sort of put new routines and new structures in place, and sort of helping developing the customer service. And obviously, with a lot of retail experience, that sort of like hits home in a way. People and routines, and making sure people are helped and all that, and that you have good routines in house. But then there was also like a bigger, like a numbers part to that I was like, okay, this, like, people is my thing, like numbers maybe not so much. And I knew that obviously I has to be sort of careful with whatever I sign up to do. And Klättermusen was actually really cool at that point. This was 2019. So they were really cool at that point because they facilitated this in a way, like they saw they took my explanation like further, sort of thing. I got a second interview with the CEO, and we had a really good chat about this. And then they basically decided that, okay, like there's a point here, like we'll split this in two. So then we were two people rather running these both sort of separate parts, but working really closely together. And I think we did like a big job of like, yeah, just like putting in new routines and new kind of how we work with customer service in the team. And since then, I've moved on a little bit in the company from that. But I think that was like, it was an exciting time for sure. And it was cool to see like a company that's like really just like adapted the role rather than like being, okay, we need to find the person for this role.
Yeah, just be open-minded. And
yeah. And were they also open-minded in your concussion story then, that you could maybe stop working, or
they've actually been super supportive, because I've had times where I'd had to leave, or even times where I've like been allowed to just like really work super flexible while struggling with a few things that like, but still you have like, because if you shut down completely, you also sort of lose your mind a little bit, like, so they've really been like, it's been cool in that sense. Really kind of found nice. Had a good discussion all the way.
Nice, and it sounds like they're growing a lot. The company's getting bigger every year.
It's insane, actually.
Yeah, and that's a recent thing, right? That's why my mindset thought like, well, this is a new company, because it's just suddenly popping up in many different.
So how did that happen?
A lot of hard work from a lot of people.
Okay.
But put it this way, we used to be. So when I joined in 2019, we were about 30 people in the company. Less than 30 people. Now we're like pushing like 70 soon, and that is just Europe. We've also partnered with China in a different way now since before, because just in like over a year ago, because they used to be distribution, but we've always worked really closely and had a really good connection with them. They're an awesome team. So now they are also working under the like Klättermusen umbrella. So we're now like pretty much like 100 people if you're like looking at the worldwide. So just in that sense, it's pretty crazy.
I was fascinated by the China story, because it feels kind of weird in a sense that a European brand suddenly gets big in China. How did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, you have a fair point, but I think that there is a lot of work behind this, and the Chinese team have been, and we worked with a different Chinese team in the past that like they've been really like hands-on with like getting Klättermusen out there in Asia and China.
Why China? How did that even started? Like, how did you come up with it?
It was sort of well, I wasn't involved in that time, so I wouldn't necessarily be able to say like exactly why. But we started exporting to China in 2002 because there was like an interest for the brand and the pieces. Like our pieces look very technical, and in China it's definitely sort of a vibe that you like. They're very intrigued by technical things, technical equipment, and they generally have they like it when it looks technical and like it has a purpose, sort of thing. And I guess that sort of grew together with like a really like a tight business communication, and then it's just risen in popularity. But they do have a fascination for more Swedish brands, like Fjällräven's quite big in Asia, like as well, and other brands too. So,
but they don't have an office there, or do they?
I'm actually not 100% sure of what the setup is, but I believe they have distributions probably rather than a team in place.
And you said a lot of hard work, but what specifically made the magic happen then to grow so much as a company?
I think perseverance, probably. But I will say that like the years when our new CEO, so the founders sold Klättermusen to like through obviously a few iterations where ended up to be our CEO today, which is also like I think that started with like a huge sort of like, okay, where are we going with this? Like, how do we take this incredible heritage that we have and develop it and build it up? Because as you say, like, I mean, we're famous for the products before, for sure, but like we weren't that big, as you mentioned. So like, how do we take this amazing product and this like way of thinking into like next level? And that's sort of where our CEO has definitely been like, had a vision and just went for it and just like never stopped.
And what was the vision, if you could describe it in a few sentences?
Well, I mean, there's like put it like into like a 3-step thing. Our main vision is definitely to become globally recognized for this, like the way of mountain life sort of that we represent, that like the uniqueness of like the way of thinking in terms of how, you're always looking for new solutions, like looking to develop new materials, like trying to find like what's the philosophy, or I would say the philosophy is to make it into like a Klättermusen thing. If you're like designing a new piece of equipment, like there's no point in designing something that's already out there. Like, how do we make it more sustainable, or how do we make it like more like long lasting or hard wearing or wherever it might be? Like that's the sort of, how do we sort of find that uniqueness? That's like 2 parts of it. And then obviously just like we want to inspire to finding these new answers and these new ways of thinking all the time. And like, that's how we work with our gear. And that's how, we see like a day on the mountains. Like, how do you sort of go up the mountain in a different way that's better than what you did before? Like, how do you think about planning your route in a different way? Like, where do you
there's a lot of money going into R&D then in the...
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, we're still generally like, if you compare to a lot of, like, if you compare to North Face, we're still a very small brand, but like, yeah for sure.
I mean, maybe percentage wise, if that's the focus of the company.
Yeah.
Cool. And are there any products that have been developed in the years that you've been there that you were like, this is a new...
So many.
New way. Yeah, so many.
So many.
Yeah.
And I think that like the first sort of years of the like when our CEO sort of stepped in and took over, there was a lot of products that were looked at and saying, okay, like we have to only focus on the products that we know are working well, and then we'll build from there. And if you look at our collection now, it's huge. So there's been a massive effort from everyone in the whole company. Because like a finished product, obviously, like it's obvious to think of the design team, but if the production team doesn't make it into reality, it never actually becomes reality. If the logistics team never makes sure that it hits the shelf in the shop, then it never hits the shelf in the shop. And then so there's so many, and if like the service team doesn't take care of you if you have some shipping issue, or if you have like a warranty or whatever, then we're nothing. So like there's all the pieces of the company has to come together, and that's sort of like really what's happened. I think there's been a really strong like cultural, like the whole company's really just been working so hard. And now it's definitely like when it's sort of starting to be a visible change, I guess.
Nice.
So you see yourself working there still for quite a few years?
I mean, I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, I've definitely found like a home in that space, and that it feels like a second home, and like feels like you come home to a family when you're at the office. So I don't really see myself going anywhere soon.
Nice.
We'll see.
Yeah, it's cool that you've created that for yourself.
Yeah, we've been to the office, and it really feels like a nice place, and somewhere I would see myself work as well, because it's such a good vibe there, and it's well designed as well. I would say. It's a good job on that. Nice.
Yeah. it's been a big project with the office and stuff as well.
But you were also saying it might be too small, so you need to expand at some point.
See, we have an ongoing issue, and that's that we keep growing.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And besides Klättermusen, we also heard something about a podcast happened.
Yeah,
will happen.
I mean,
What's the story?
My eternal passion project, I guess. But yeah, like, so I mean, yeah, it was called Snowboardpodden, as probably not a lot of people know about, I guess. But it was just an interview project that I sort of founded just because I felt like, you know, it was back in like 2016, 17. A lot of magazines were like really just disappearing. There was all like this. There was such a big focus. It was still big now, but I think it's sort of the slow media sort of returning a little bit. But you know, there's so much like just fast media, pictures, movies, like clips rather than films, and I was like, there are so many cool stories in snowboarding, especially like Scandinavian stories like snowboard stories that like never sort of gets out of the core bubble. Like the core bubble of snowboarding knows all about these things and what happened in those years, or who did this clip, or who did this trick, or whatever it might be. But they're like, I just felt like they never really reach out to, because like we can sit there and talk about it, but like who hears that? Like it's not accessible for any snowboarder or for anyone that is interested. And that's why I sort of started it, because I felt like if you can spread that sort of storytelling a bit more, and that was like my aim, to spread the stories. Really, that was all it.
Did you record anything? Or
yeah, there are 3 seasons online. It's on Spotify actually.
Okay.
3
in
seasons
Swedish.
is quite a lot of episodes. Yeah, so how many episodes?
It's not that many per season, but I can't quite remember how many, but it's 20 something.
Okay, yeah, nice.
In Swedish, I guess. Or in
Well,
English.
there are a couple of international ones, but the main focus has definitely been like Scandinavian and Swedish snowboarding. And it was put on a shelf also due to concussion issues, that I just wasn't able to do like anything else but to function at work, sort of thing. But it's never gone. We'll see.
Still there. You have no concrete plans of picking it up.
I mean, there's been a lot of things happening this fall that was meant to sort of lead to the first to like a rejuvenation of the podcast actually. But then, you know, we had some family things, and like my dad actually passed away, as well as like a good friend. So basically the whole fall sort of was put off. Basically, we pulled the cord on the whole fall pretty much. So that's sort of, and then it's just work's been, not that that's an excuse, but work's been busy, and that feels like I have to kind of find my balance.
It doesn't go anywhere, so
that's what I sort of feel like. It's not like, right, there's no, which is also a cool thing, but I guess that you guys feel sort of the same way. It's like when you're doing it as in terms of a passion project, there's no like, you don't need to set like a set like goal. It has to be this way, or it has to be this date, or it has to be, you know, that's definitely like I try to manage it in that way. So I would say that I've had the question if it's coming back, and I'll say that that's the plan.
That's a good sign also when people ask about it, for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's too soon to talk about this, but losing your dad, did it change the way you look at things in some way?
I think that, and always like losing a family member in that sense, you kind of get that little lesson of make sure to take the time in these things, and make sure to like make that phone call sort of thing. So that's definitely, you know, that's something that sticks with me. Me and my dad were like, so I'm super close with my mom. I was never like that, like as close with my dad, but we've always had like a good communication, you know? And so that was and I didn't, because my mom and dad didn't live together anymore.
Yeah.
So I was like, I wasn't there that much to at his house at the same amount as I was with my mom. But I've also obviously like we are quite often on the phone and stuff like that. So you're like, it's definitely weird not making that phone call, or like, not having that sort of missed call after work or whatever. Like, it's sort of weird, but yeah. So it's strange, but I did actually tell him that in the end of like before he passed away. It's like, because being brought up with him in the motocross and all that, like, there's so many things that he's taught me that I might not have thought about then, because like when you're a young kid and you're all like, everything on your own, and you're gonna, like your dad doesn't know shit. When you get older and you realize that he's taught me so much that I've brought with me my whole life, that I actually, maybe I'd never really reflected on the fact that he's actually, taught me these things. Maybe unknowingly, but like, as sort of instilled in me. And I actually did tell him that, and like during those last few months of his life, which I'm incredibly thankful for. And then, so that's actually a big one for me. That's sort of, I think about that and I feel calm in a sense.
Yeah.
There's a famous Dutch song, relates a lot to this. And
I get emotional when I think of it. Yeah. Okay.
It's mainly boys and dads, and it says, Papa, ik lijk steeds meer op jou, which means that I look a lot more like you every year that passes by.
Yeah.
And that's something I think a lot of sons and dads probably can relate to.
Yeah, I think so too.
There's also this story that the person that we become over time, you can see it as a house made of bricks, and you take some bricks from your parents that told you things, and then you take some bricks from your partner. But in the end, you're creating your own house and you put your own bricks in there. And when I look back at my puberty, I think I was, we all are rebelling against everything our parents are saying. And you're just like, oh, that's bullshit and that's stupid. And then, you try to not become certain things. I think that's also very important, to be aware of what doesn't resonate with you and to try to let that go and not become your parents. That's also an easy way to go, but then pick out the pretty parts. And then I think now for me as well, I wrote a book about my life, and it made me, it made me think about what my parents gave me, but also made me way more grateful with the good things that they gave me. For example, my parents always say, also in Dutch, but nee heb je, ja kan je krijgen. So you have no, but you can get a yes, Always try, you never know. All these little things that you can be grateful of in the end. And it's a nice process. The good part of becoming older, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's like a beautiful way of looking at it. Like, always see the opportunity, I guess, in the sense.
Yeah.
Is there anything we haven't touched on that you would like to share?
I mean, there's a lot of things, but I'm not sure that's anything that people want to hear about. No, but I'm not sure. Like, I think we've covered a lot of things. But if it's anything that I think that's important that I want to mention, is just like this town, in a way, obviously, given the subject of your podcast and process, like the project as well, is like, which I think it's really cool that you're doing, by the way. I'm not sure I've said that. Is this sort of the same vibe that I had with Snowboardpodden? Is like, like there are a lot of like, this town is its people. Like, there's so much people in this town that are like driven and like just ambitious and want to do stuff. Like, they're like, people want to make stuff happen. And that's sort of, I think that's why I like this town so much. Is like, it's not like, if it was for, I'll be totally honest, like if it was for the snow, or if it was only for the powder, I mean, there are more places that has a lot of good snow, for example, but those places don't have this town. Like, those places don't have these people. Like, I guess that's why we got stuck, and why we sort of never left, and why we feel that this is home, because it's just a lot of passionate people that are just rad people that make stuff happen.
It's growing, kind of. It's never standing still, sure. And it's so fun to see.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, you guys are part of that. You have your thing, and like, there's just a lot of like people that make this town what it is. And that's
the magic, I think, is that we feel that we're allowed to be part of that. Even though we're not Swedes, and people could say like, what, maybe some people do, but who knows. what are they doing? Why do they think they can do a podcast about people in Åre? They don't even speak Swedish fluently. But people so far embrace it and are kind and are helping. And I think that's a bit of the magic as well.
Yeah. I mean, but that's also something that I think is very unique in this town. It's like internationality, if that's the word, is not an issue.
Yeah.
We have people at work that are not Swedish, like quite a few. So our working language in the office is English.
Yeah, cool.
It's not, it's not weird. It's not like a weird thing in this town. But if you go back to like where I'm from, it's a little bit like, oh, would you have to speak English at a dinner? Like, it's like, why? It's not to like up where I'm from, but like more of like that small town vibe in a sense. You know what I mean? Like this place has a different vibe, and like I appreciate that. Like I think that's why I sort of feel at home.
Yeah.
Do you ever go back to your old town?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. My mom and my sister still live there. So, so I go back there for sure. Like, I mean, I love it back home. Like it's like a mental break for me. Like I love going out in the woods with all the dogs, and like because obviously, well, you guys know that we have a dog, and pretty much everyone in my family has their own dogs. Like when me and my sisters go out and like release the pack, there's like 10 of them.
Wow.
So it's an experience.
Nice.
Really cool. But so I definitely go back. Like,
and
I
did
love
that
it.
change at all over the years, or is it still the same vibe there?
How that place has changed?
Yeah.
I think I hang out with my mom and my sisters a lot more than I hang out in town itself. So I think I think being older, I think maybe I'm a bit more like disconnected than I used to be. Than what the kids do these days.
But I mean, it's still kind of the same size, the same vibe. It's not much happened.
No, like it's had, it's definitely developed, but not in like a huge sense. Yeah. Compared to this place, it's definitely hasn't had the same sort of skyrocket.
Yeah, because you've been here for a while now, so you've seen a bit of transformation.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when the summers used to be super chilled, and you're just biking with your friends and everyone knew each other. Like there was there was no one that you didn't know. Like if you didn't know you didn't know them, you knew of them, sort of thing. Obviously that happens when you work in some in one of the most famous shops in the whole town as well. But there's definitely it's definitely grown like crazy since then. Like just the summer in general is just massive now, whereas it used to be this calm little biking town sort of thing.
And do you like the transformation?
I do, because it brings development. Yeah. Like I think it's cool because like with that, like new shops are opening. Yeah. New people have new opportunities. Like but there are more bike shops here now than there was before. For example, like the bike park's growing. Like, I mean, so yeah, no, I'm all for it.
Do you have any advice for people that want to move to Åre?
Don't be disappointed when the weather is like it is today. No, but I mean, I think it's a process of getting into Åre. Like, I think Åre is a town where we hang out we associate by activity, sort of thing. And I think like it's a town where you sort of get to know people through doing what you enjoy doing. Yeah. At least that's my thought. Mm-hmm. And I think that like, even if there's a lot more people here now, and it might be harder to sort of find your group than maybe it used to be, because there's just more people, then as long as you're here just doing what you want to do and doing it in the way you want to do it, then eventually it's like you'll find your crew, and you'll find your friends, and you'll kind of get into the vibe. There's a lot of clubs
that you can join. So
yeah, exactly. There's a lot of activities, and that's the same thing as well. Like there used to be a couple of different clubs, but now there's like things happening in everywhere. Yeah. So it's just like join in on the good times and just hang out.
Yeah, and it's also things like maybe listeners think that's with that. I mean, like snowboard clubs and ski clubs, but there is a cold water swimming club. There's a running club, a biking club, a gravel biking club. A book club. There's millions of different things.
And so like there's just stuff happening everywhere. Yeah, it's city vibe in a small format.
Yeah, very true. And do you have any big bucket list dreams in your life plan? If hypothetically everything was possible, is there something that pops up when you think of that?
Yeah, for sure. Like splitboarding or like snowboarding in different parts of the world is definitely, like. But me and Sanny, we're working on that list. Right?
Okay, what's your top 3 of places you want to splitboard?
I want to go back to Alaska.
Okay.
So.
Ooh, back to Alaska.
Yeah.
I've been there already.
Yeah, no, but that was Sunny. That's my wife. Like, she's definitely that. Like we talked about like what's your top 3 like bucket list things to do for like, because we want to do it for our honeymoon, and we both put snowboarding in Alaska as number 1. It's like, and as I looked at Sunny, I was like, we can't do that. Like normal people just can't go there. She's like, sure you can. Just takes a bit longer. So,
exactly.
So that's what we did. So, but that's something that's like, I would like to go back to Alaska for like splitboarding maybe. But
how was the honeymoon then? Idea was it?
Oh, great.
You were just the 2 of you going splitboarding. You booked.
Well, no, we went like normal snowboarding and helicopter actually.
Yeah.
We figured we're like, okay, if we're gonna do this once in our life, we'll do this.
Nice.
So, and then we went to California for a while to just like.
And how was the powder? Was there any good snow? Mind blowing.
Yeah, it was good.
And how was it to go with I've never been helicopter snowboarding. How was that?
It was intense. Like it was very, very surreal to sit in a helicopter with a guide, just like talking to the pilot and just like pointing at a peak and just like, check that out, like go there, and then you get to ride like some of the like most insane runs, like not in the sense of like steepest, dangerous, but like long, big, just wide open, amazing.
Because when we
snow.
think of Alaska, I think spines and crazy,
yeah.
and like I really want to do it, but I don't know in which way I'm ready.
This was way more the tourist attraction style of riding. Okay. But it was still like big faces and big riding, and it was probably mellow for Alaska, but very, very big for Scandinavia and Europe.
Nice.
So
super cool.
But that's something that like it would be cool to go and just do like something. But that was like more, I don't know, Svalbard. I'd like to go there for some splitboarding.
Mm. That's another level again because it's
cold.
More wild and colder. And all these.
Have to ask my hunting family for some shooting lessons.
Also, yeah. And what is cool about Svalbard? Because I never thought about splitboarding there. It hasn't been on our radar yet.
It's just crazy remote.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Yeah. So like Tromsø, Lingen Alps area, but then next level even, I would say.
So that's sort of like I think that's on like sort of like a bucket list for sure.
You see that happen in any?
In the future. I mean, not in the near future, but in the future, for sure.
Cool.
We're going to Japan this winter, so that's also been on the bucket list for a long time, but now like already.
It's happening.
So
how long are you going for?
A couple of weeks.
Okay.
Nice.
So we're gonna.
Jealous.
Huh?
I'm jealous.
Yeah, well, I'm pinching myself too. Actually, it's a quite common thing for a lot of people here to go to Japan, but we've never been. So so it's going to be exciting.
We had a Japao fund at some point.
Oh yeah,
it had to be emptied, but now we have to rebuild it.
Yeah.
One day we'll get there.
Yeah, there's going to be a joint sort of Klättermusen work trip with some like vacation for me and Sunny as well. So it's going to be good.
Nice.
Looking forward to that.
Do they sell Klättermusen in Japan?
Yeah, growing a lot.
Yeah.
And the Japanese team over there, like our distribution, are really cool guys, and they've been here for like touring and visiting us and working with us as well. So looking forward to
going. So you get some guides there as well.
Looking forward to going into their backyard a bit with them. It's gonna be
super nice.
That's gonna be good.
Wow.
I guess those are like the 3, but sort of, I guess so. Then there's the biking part of things, but we shouldn't just go into that too much.
We'll do another podcast at some point. To wrap up, we have some rapid fire fun. Are you ready? Skiing or snowboarding?
Snowboarding.
I think that one was clear, but I still have to ask. It's a tradition. Hiking or biking?
Biking for sure.
Morning person or evening person?
See, I used to be an evening person. I'm getting more and more into being a morning person. You know that like morning cup of coffee in the sunrise, like out in the mountains, it's a good one.
You start to appreciate it more. It's hard though to have that sunrise steady, because sometimes at sunrise is at like 2 a.m. So I don't know what happens to you then.
But we're talking we're talking winter sunrises.
So yeah.
But yeah, no, I definitely I can still be a night person, but I really I think all my whole life I've been an outdoors person, and who doesn't appreciate an early morning in the mountains?
Yeah, true. Hot tub or sauna?
Well, can I do both?
You can do anything. Yeah,
probably sauna. Or sauna with a dip in the lake. Oh,
nice. Yeah, because you guys do that near your house, right?
Yeah, sometimes. Or we have a New Year's tradition where we always do it, and then we and then we do like whenever we sort of, if we have we don't do it like on a regular basis, but we do it sometimes. Yeah.
Super nice. Well, that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you have to pick snowboarding or mountain biking.
See, that would be it's so hard. That's why I live here, because you get both. But I honestly think that biking and like that's always been closer in one way, just since that's sort of my upbringing. But when I'm snowboarding, I can't, obviously, like a good day in the mountain, like I can't imagine anything else. But like if I could only do one thing, I would have a really hard time letting go of biking.
Okay, I kind of suspected that.
No.
Can you choose? Yeah.
No, I would say snowboarding. I need to snowboard. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I don't want to choose.
No, you don't
Let's not choose. That's the good part about life. Yeah. We should have you in the summer again and talk about biking.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
Thanks for talking.
Thank you for having me. Yeah. I appreciate your project. I'm looking forward to listening to everyone else.
Yeah.